Good evening, everyone. How you guys all doing? Good. You guys could open your Bibles to the book of Numbers, chapter 11. Book of Numbers, chapter 11. Let's go ahead and pray one more time before we get in the Word. God, we just ask that as we are here before you this evening, Lord, that you would just give us hearts of thankfulness. Help us to be mindful of the good and pleasant and wonderful things you've given to us. And help us also, Lord, to be thankful even for the tribulations and the trials, knowing that such things create patience and perseverance in our hearts, Lord, and knowing, God, that it will ultimately yield the peaceable fruit of righteousness. I pray as we study your word that you would instruct us in it, you would help us to grow through it, and that you would help us to walk in the path that you have laid out for us. We ask this in your Son's name, amen. So as I pointed out last week, we're moving. And what I mean by moving, of course, is both literally and I guess figuratively. And I don't know which one is literally. When I say we're moving, we're actually moving on in Scripture, right? We're in chapter 11. So we've literally moved forward, and we've moved out of the kind of, I don't know, what has become commonplace for us, that is the reading of the various commands and the laws and the discussions of the laying down of the tabernacle of meeting and all of the rituals that the Israelites are supposed to keep and follow. These things that we, of course, have been reading about for quite some time. So we're moving kind of in a new direction where the scriptures are actually going to be talking to us about some new things. Also in the text, Moses and the children of Israel are finally moving. After a couple-year hiatus, wherein they were receiving the law, receiving the instruction of the word of the Lord, and as they were preparing the building of the tabernacle, and as they were preparing to create essentially this civilization of the people of God, they were stuck in one place there at the foot of Mount Sinai. And now after a couple of years, they're literally packing up, they're picking up their tents, and they're beginning to move. And remember, ultimately, the goal of the move, the final destination, is to be the land that had been promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the land of promise, wherein they will settle and they'll have homes and a civilization will grow, Israel. And so while they're moving, we come across the first trial that they will face. So look here at chapter 11, verse 1. Now, when the people complained, it displeased the Lord, for the Lord heard it, and his anger was aroused. Now, it seems unnecessary to say the Lord heard it, for the Lord hears everything. But I do love the way that the scriptures do use what is called anthropomorphic language. Like they use the language to describe God that kind of gives him human type characteristics. And the purpose in this, I think there's manifold. There are lots of reasons why they might do this. Part of this is, of course, because we understand humanity. We understand what it means to be a person. The scriptures tell us that no man has seen God at any time, but the only begotten Son has declared him. The idea there is, of course, Jesus is God as a man. We do not understand God in all of his glory. That's something we cannot wrap our heads around. I mean, if you just stop and think about it for 1 second, we say that God is omnipresent. That means he's everywhere at once. What does that exactly mean? Especially when you consider that there are other things out there, right? Like this microphone. This microphone is taking up space. What does it mean for God to inhabit the same space that the microphone is? Now, I'm not going to get into that. I just want to point out that when we start thinking about what it means, like the various qualities and attributes of God, what those things are and what they mean, it's a thing that we cannot wrap our heads around. We fundamentally do not understand him. And that's the point of that verse I quoted from John chapter 1, that no one has seen God at any time. We do not have the ability to wrap our minds around him. But we do understand men. We understand people because we ourselves are people. And so it behooves the Lord. a thing that he does to try to describe himself in human ways. It's a way that the story becomes alive for us. And the Lord heard it. He hears everything, so there's nothing he doesn't hear. But I love what it's doing is it's creating kind of like a dramatic sensibility in this particular moment. For I would imagine you all at various times in your lives, and kudos to you if you have not done this, have spoken ill of somebody behind their back, right? I know I have. And I would imagine that over the course of your life, you not only have spoken ill of somebody behind their backs, but I would imagine that at some point in your life, you may have spoken ill of somebody and they heard you speaking ill of them. You guys know what I'm talking about? Like, you just happen to unfortunately say the thing that you're going to say, and all of a sudden, the person you're telling it to is looking at you like, and then you're like, this person is right behind me, right? Yep, he sure is. I don't know why, when I was in high school, I had this one friend. This is actually neither here nor there. I have no need to tell you this, but I'm throwing it out there anyway. My friend Gene, who I did love and do love. Like, even though we haven't done a great job of keeping in touch, like, I still have fond affection for him in my heart. He's actually one of the few friends I grew up with who moved to Boise and actually went to church here for a while. And I even ended up having the blessing of being able to marry him and his wife over here in Boise. He doesn't live here anymore, but I don't know why. When I was in high school, and thank goodness he obviously forgave me for this, I found myself on many occasions speaking bad about him behind his back. And I don't know why, but in this one instance, this one person kept hearing me say bad things about him behind his back. I can think of at least 3 different occasions when I was talking about him and somebody's looking at me like, and I'm like, there he is again. Every single time Gene catches me. I don't know why. And it's kind of a funny thing too, because, there's a proverb in which God tells us, did somebody speak ill of you? Don't take it to heart, for you have spoken ill of others too. This is an aside, but that's one of the things that if you ever find out somebody was putting you down behind your back, one of the good things that kind of helps it make all seem a little bit better is when you just stop and think about the people you've spoken ill of behind their back. Because I can tell you, the vast majority of people that I've actually spoken ill of behind their back are people that I actually love a lot. You know what I mean? Like, I hate that that's a fact, but it's a fact. Incidentally, as an aside, if you ever meet somebody who just refuses to speak bad of somebody, cling on to that person as a friend, because you can rest assured that if they won't speak bad of somebody to you, they will not speak bad about you to somebody else. You can trust. Oh, you guys know that works both ways, right? If there's somebody you know who just loves to just indulge in all the bad gossip about somebody, just rest assured they will not hesitate to say it about you. I'm going to take this moment to just give a plug for Reggie Etheridge, who I lived with for 8 years. And in all that time, I never once heard him say anything bad about a person. And not only that, every single time I ever tried to get him to say something bad about a person, this reveals a little bit about my heart because I've done it, he would always deflect. He would always respond with something like, yeah, he's a great guy. And I'm like, that is not what I said. I did not say he's a great guy. I've always admired that. Anyway, that has nothing really to do with this other than to say, the Lord heard it. The idea is, it's carrying on this idea that the people are complaining, and it wants you to know God heard it, like he's standing there listening. And that's the wonderful thing about all of this is God always hears it. Whatever it is you're complaining about, whatever it is that you are gossiping about, God always hears. And so you may, of course, if you know that a friend is listening, if you come to find out somebody heard you, you might get that anxious kind of feeling in the chest, where you're like, oh no, I can't believe I said that and they heard it. And then it might actually even stick with you. You think about it all day. Did they know, like, how do they think about me? Are they upset? Like, I probably need to address this. Rest assured, no matter what, God hears it all. Verse 2, the people cried out to Moses. And when I skipped over. His anger was aroused. That's where I left off. So the fire of the Lord burned among them and consumed some in the outskirts of the camp. So notice, in response, the fire of the Lord burns in the camp. Now, there is a lot that is left undefined here. The reality is, all it says is that this fire came as a response to God's wrath against the people for their complaining. And it says that the fire burned. Now, it actually doesn't specify who or what they burned. Some commentarians will sit there and say, there's no need to assume it actually burned any people. I don't know. I hope you guys can buckle up and brace yourself, because we're going to be reading about a lot of foolish things the Israelites are going to do. And all I want to say is, you will find as we move forward that God is not above burning a few people in response to some of these things that are going to happen. It's like I can appreciate wanting to say God wouldn't do something like that, but the reality is you guys are going to see. And I do just want to stop and kind of qualify this and just point out that this is not something that the Lord takes lightly, this complaining. And today, this is actually a chapter I've been greatly relishing teaching, because it speaks of something that is very near and dear to my heart, and something that I think, or I hope I have some actual wisdom to impart to you that I think will make a big difference in your life. Not I, but the Lord, I think, is giving us in this chapter. So let's keep going. Verse 4. Now the mixed multitude who were among them yielded to intense craving. Now when it says the mixed multitude, it's saying all the different people groups that are present here, right? So this of course means the Israelites, but it also could mean foreigners who have ultimately come and joined them, referencing the fact that you have different groups of people. It also could be just a breakdown of the different tribes, because we have several different tribes. The point is, everybody is guilty of this. Not literally every individual. No doubt there were plenty of individuals who didn't complain. But in general, broadly speaking, this is true of the mixed multitude of the camp of Israel. They yielded to intense craving. So the children of Israel also wept and said, "Who will give us meat to eat? We remember the fish which we ate freely in Egypt, the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, and the garlic. But now our whole being is dried up. There is nothing at all except this manna before our eyes." Now let me give you a little bit of a review. So now's review time. Let's mentally go back to the book of Exodus, right? Moses shows up to Israel and says, "God has sent me to set you free." And there's an excitement that surrounds this at the beginning of the story. But of course, the plagues come. And if you recall, after the initial plagues, Pharaoh is frustrated with Moses and with the Israelites. And Pharaoh says, this is all because the Israelites are lazy. And he decides to punish them. He decides to punish the Israelites by saying, you're going to have to make the same quota of bricks that you've been making for us, but I'm not going to give you any straw with which to make the bricks. You're going to have to go out and gather the straw yourself. So he increases the workload, but demands the same quota. And the thing to note is how the people of Israel respond. They respond by basically saying, why did you come and do all of this to Moses? Like, who are you? Who put you over us? You've made our lot worse. We wish you had not come at all. So they complain against Moses because him coming has made their lives harder. Fast forward, he sticks with the plan, as you guys all know, and after 10 plagues, Pharaoh decides to send them out. He's like, you guys are free. I don't want to have anything more to do with you guys because you have been a curse upon my people. And so the children of Israel get what they want. They get freedom. They have been slaves. Now they are free. And being free, they are now being directed to go, hopefully someday soon, into the promised land, the land that God had promised to their forefathers. And so there's great rejoicing. There's singing, celebration. But it also, as you guys know, Pharaoh's going to change his mind and he's going to chase after them. And they find themselves, or they come to the realization, I should say, that Pharaoh and his forces are chasing after them when they find themselves stuck right in the face of the Red Sea, stuck between a rock and a hard place. And you guys remember what they say to Moses at that particular point? They say, was it because there were not enough graves in Egypt that you brought us out here? In other words, did you do all of this just to kill us? Like, back home, we were safe. Yes, we were slaves, but at least we had jobs and we didn't have to fear for our lives and food was provided for us. What does Moses say? He says, stand still and observe the salvation of the Lord. And then they see the biggest miracle in the Bible. And when I say the biggest miracle, what I mean is like, I'm talking literally like qualitatively, the biggest is in largest in scope. God separates the Red Sea, they pass over on dry ground, and then he causes the Red Sea to pass back over and to destroy the Egyptians as they're chasing after them. And so they're free. The Egyptians are not going to chase them anymore. Hooray, everything's great. Except what happens? They end up now in the desert and they are thirsty and they are not feeling great again. And then they stumble upon some water and they're so excited. I can't imagine what this would have been like, as I myself never have been stuck in a desert, but I would imagine it would be pretty great being in a desert, being thirsty, and all of a sudden finding a pool of water. So they run to it and they start drinking the water, and it's bitter water. They can't drink it. Undrinkable. So what do? The same exact thing they did when they saw the Red Sea in front of them. They say, did you just bring us out here to kill us, Lord? Like, is the whole thing just like rats in a cage? You just want to ruin our lives? And what does Moses do? He takes a stick, throws it in the water, and those bitter waters become sweet, and now they can drink. So everything's good, sort of, until they begin marching again, and then they start complaining because they're hungry. We are going to starve. Back in Egypt, we had food. Back in Egypt, we were well fed always, because of course you're going to feed your slaves well. You need them as a workforce. You don't want to deprive them. Life was better back as a slave. So I want you to think about, get your mind in their minds. What are they continually looking back to? What is the thing they're continually regretting happened to them? They're regretting that they were ever freed from slavery. The thing which, incidentally, for 400 years was the only thing in the world they wanted, was to be freed from slavery. They get the one thing they've ever wanted. They're free. And now what are they saying? We liked it better back then. But God, in his mercy, continues to bless them. And so what does he do? He causes it to rain bread. Right? They're hungry. You do not ever need to worry about whether or not you will have a meal. I'm going to make it rain bread every day except for on the Sabbath, because you need to rest on the Sabbath. But don't worry, because on Friday, I'm going to give a double portion. You're going to have plenty of food to eat on the Sabbath. It's going to rain bread. Guys, do you understand that what that means for these people? In a world, in a time when starvation was just a real thing that people could face at any given moment, to sit there and to have that confidence, to know that bread will always be there, and to know that it's coming at a time and a place when they're in like the desert, what a miraculous thing. But they find themselves thirsty again. So what do? They complain. They complain again. And it's like, did you not forget every single thing that came before? Did you not forget how, yes, things were tough when Pharaoh tried to take away your straw, but God used it and he got you free? Do you not forget when he parted the Red Sea? God used that, you were free. Do you not remember? Right now you're complaining about drink. Do you not remember that God turned the waters of Mara, the bitter waters, sweet so that you could drink it? And from all of that, what God is expecting you to do is to say, oh, he's met my needs every step along the way, and therefore he no doubt is going to do what? He's going to meet my needs the next time they arise. But instead, they have the exact same response. What does Moses do? He goes to the rock, he takes a stick, he smacks the rock, water pours forth from the rock, and now they're drinking water that literally materializes out of the rock. And Paul indicates in 1 Corinthians that just for good measure, that rock stood up and started following them. So that if they were ever in a situation again where they were out of water, don't worry, the rock is there and the water is pouring forth. They're going to be taken care of. So here's the thing. Now they've been at Sinai, and they have been fed, and they have been watered, and they have been fed faithfully every single day. The manna comes, and on Friday, twice the amount of manna comes in. They are taken care of. What is going on right now? Now they're complaining, not because they're about to starve and they're fearful for what might come. Not that they need to have any doubt whatsoever that God is going to meet their need, because God has been meeting their needs, not because they might die of thirst because the water is pouring forth, but because they are bored with the food that is coming. Because guys, I do have to acknowledge, it would be boring to eat. I don't know what manna looks like. I don't know. Well, it tells you, but actually, let's read it right now, verse 7. Just, I just said don't know what it looks like. Manna was like coriander seed. I have to be honest, I don't know what coriander seed looks like. Some of you maybe, like if you cook and you use coriander, maybe you have a sense. I don't cook. I have no idea. It's color like the color of bdellium. Don't know what that looks like. I could look it up, but I just didn't do it. And I don't know what this stuff looks like. The people went about, gathered it, ground it on millstones, beat it in a mortar, cooked it in pans. They made cakes of it. So it's certainly kind of bread-like, obviously. So please note what they're doing here. They're trying to be as creative, inventive as they can. They don't want to eat it the same way all the time. And its taste was like the taste of pastry prepared with oil. That's good. Like, I think I could live with that. And when the dew fell on the camp at night, the manna fell on it. So here's the thing. It sounds decent. I don't know what it tastes like. I don't know how many variations you can make in terms of how you prepare the manna. But what is abundantly clear is they are getting very sick and tired of eating the same thing every single day. And I get that because I also get sick and tired of eating the same kinds of things. And the crazy thing is that I live in a day and an age with all of the things around me that I can actually make something different. I just choose not to. So I actually get sick of it, and then I'm like, it's too hard. I'm just going to go get Taco Bell again. And what am I going to get at Taco Bell? The same dang thing I get every single time. That's what I'm going to do. But I do sit there and go, I'm tired of this stuff. I need to not do the same thing every day. But guys, could you imagine every single day, breakfast, lunch, dinner, manna, 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 and all they want, and I can be very sympathetic to this, is meat. Because I do love meat. My friend Peter out here just gave me a smile because that dude has made some very, very good steak. And I love going over his house and having steak. I love meat. And I could appreciate that going 2 years, no meat would be very hard. And let me just tell you right now, I think about this a lot. There is about a 0% chance that I would not be amongst the complainers. I would 100% be complaining about having the same old food again. And I know this because I am a complainer, all right? And it's one of these things that I make full confession to you of. In fact, my complaining, now I do think maybe my complaining has a comedic bent to it because it's so, and I think, to be honest, can I say really quickly, this is probably true of most 21st century Americans. We develop phrases for it, right? You know, when people talk about first world problems and things of that nature. It is funny to think of Americans complaining, and we complain a lot about all sorts of things. Jacob, if you could cue up the little video, don't show it yet. This is going to be a very quick thing, so I need you guys to cue in, and Jacob have that, because it goes really fast. I was complaining to a friend of mine once, and I was complaining about work. I was saying, I don't remember exactly. Actually, I think I was complaining about lots of things. Work. I think I was complaining because I had a busy week. And I'm pretty sure he was like, what are you doing? And I was like, well, I got dinner at this one person's house and I got this, whatever. And he's listening. He goes, oh, pretty rough, huh? And I go, yeah. He goes, yeah, being a school teacher in 21st century America is hard. I go, yeah. And he goes, and dinners every night? Ooh, kind of like coal miners in the 19th century, huh? And I was like, fair point. I'm like, yeah, I really don't have anything to complain about. This friend turned around and made an AI video that kind of captured the ridiculousness of it. So I figured I'd share it.
A new study now lists private school teacher among the hardest jobs in the world.
The coal mine sounds hard, but being a private school teacher isn't exactly a walk in the park. I've been invited to 3 dinners this week, and I'm supposed to go to a game night too.
I've been invited to 3 dinners this week, and I'm supposed to go to a game night too. It might sound absurd, but I have complained about that. I've been like, I got dinner every night. Dinner? You've got dinner? For a guy who is single and who is definitely going to eat Taco Bell if I don't go to dinner, I'm complaining because I have 3 dinners I have to go to? It is ridiculous. And most of the time, our complaining is of this particular nature. And if you stop and step away for, just a little bit, the absurdity of it shows itself very strongly. And of course, it's pointed out so often in our society and our culture that we actually now have defenses against it. I can't tell you how many times I've been online, been on Twitter or Instagram or whatever, and people will have this defense in store where when somebody's complaining, a natural response, this is the thing we learned as kids, is to say, I'll give you the proverbial one. You're sitting around the table and somebody's complaining, a kid is complaining because he doesn't like what's presented before him. And then the parent responds by saying, there are kids starving over in third world countries, right? And so all this to say, it's very common for us to say, yeah, you might have had some difficulty, but remember, some people have it really hard. And maybe you should stop and reflect on the really difficult things, which, by the way, is exactly what that video is doing. 19th century coal miners who worked faithfully, they had it hard. And I would venture to bet, I'm sure they complained, it's human nature, but I would venture to bet that if they were standing in my presence and heard me complaining about grading or about prepping or about going to dinners, it would just be so ridiculous. I don't even know if they would know how to respond to that. But all this to say, I've seen people combat this. They go, we should never compare like the hardship that people have. And I think there's a truth in that. That's one of the difficult things about these kinds of things. It's about truth in general, is that there is always a little bit of truth that from it we can kind of draw something that we should remember. And there is truth in the fact that if you are suffering, it doesn't eliminate that suffering to point out that other people are in certain ways qualitatively suffering more. Suffering is suffering, and it does matter to the person who's experiencing it. And so I think there's a value in recognizing that, and we should all kind of pause. But I also want you all to recognize that there is a power in recognizing that other people are suffering more. And the power that exists in recognizing that other people are suffering more, I think probably many aspects of this, but part of it is it shows us that the suffering can be borne, that people actually can endure it, and that they can endure it well. There are people who have suffered extremely, and they have this almost supernatural power to not complain about the circumstance. Because just as I described a moment ago, that person that you might have met who never speaks ill of somebody, no doubt you all have people in your life who also never complain, who also never say anything negative about a circumstance. That is a capacity that people have. And so I want you to keep that in the backdrop of your mind as we're kind of reading through this, because we got a lot of reading here about complaining. So let's go ahead and take a look here. Let's keep moving. Look at verse 10. And we're going to have a little bit of complaint from Moses in response. Then Moses heard the people weeping throughout their families, everyone at the door of his tent, and the anger of the Lord was greatly aroused, and Moses was also displeased. I love this. Moses said to the Lord, "Why have you afflicted your servant? Why have I not found favor in your sight, and you have laid the burden of all these people on me? Did I conceive all these people?" He's like, am I their mom? Why do I have to listen to their complaining? Why do I have to resolve all their problems? Are you punishing me, Lord? Is that why you put these people under me? Did I beget them? Am I their dad that you should say to me, carry them in your bosom as a guardian carries a nursing child to the land which you swore to their fathers? Where am I to get meat to give to all these people? They're out here crying and whining and complaining. I can't give them everything they want. And I just want you to see, guys, here the burden of leadership that Moses is expressing. And incidentally, this would and is always true. When you have somebody who is a leader, whether the leader is good or bad, the leader has to bear the burdens of the people he or she is leading. And in bearing those burdens, it is difficult. It is difficult because the leader maybe doesn't care about the same things that these people care about. And who is going to receive the complaints? Who is the one who this is all going to be directed to? It's going to be the leader. So what is Moses doing here? He's like, I am tired of this. I don't care. Carrying on. Where am I to get meat to give all these people? They weep all over me saying, give us meat that we may eat. I am not able to bear all these people alone because the burden is too heavy for me. If you treat me like this, please kill me here and now. I mean, like, I don't mean to laugh at this, but this is very dramatic, right? Like he is, and I have no doubt that he probably in this, okay, let me rephrase this. I don't know if he's serious or if this is being dramatic. I have to be fair. He could be being dramatic. I also am a very dramatic person. I'm also the kind of person who can sit there and throw my hands up and just say, I quit. This is, the worst thing. I mean, I know it runs in my blood. I watch like my brother, who I always think of because he and I are exactly alike. He's just more unrestrained than me. He is always saying things, not like this, like kill me now, but it's always like, that's it, I'm done. I'm going to, like if he's stuck in traffic, I'm going to plow through people. I'm like, you're not going to plow through anybody. Chill out. But it's this extremely dramatic thing. Kill me here and now. If I have found favor in your sight, do not let me see my wretchedness. Lord, I'm done. I don't want to have anything more to do with these people. Now, what I want to pause here and point out, it mentions the wrath of the Lord. And I do think that the Lord is being wrathful in this moment for lots of reasons. But no doubt one cause of the wrath is the perpetual nature of the complaining. The fact that at no point are these people stopping and having any degree of self-awareness. They're not pausing and thinking about what it is that God has indeed done for them. So I do think it's kind of an expression of like frustration in the midst of this. And can I say, this this act of the Israelites is not going to stop. At this point, it's going to keep going. We're going to essentially see complaining for the next 40 years. I mean, not us, but like in their story. Complaining. They're never satisfied. So Moses too, right here, he's like, Lord, I'm so fed up with this. He is complaining before the Lord. So we do see the Lord's wrath. We do see his frustration, but we're also going to see his mercy, both to Moses and to the people. Because what is the first thing we're going to see the Lord does when he sees Moses overwhelmed in his leadership? We're going to see the Lord show mercy to Moses. Verse 16. So the Lord said to Moses, gather to me 70 men of the elders of Israel, whom you know to be the elders of the people and officers over them. Bring them to the tabernacle of meeting, that they may stand there with you. Then I will come down and I will talk with you there. I will take of the Spirit that is upon you, and I will put the same upon them. So the Spirit of God, which dwells in Moses and is upon Moses, the Spirit of God, which empowers him to do all the things that he's been doing, not just the miraculous, but also that empowers him to make wise decisions, that empowers him to be able to teach the people. This thing he could not do in his natural self, in his flesh, he's done through the power of God. And what is God saying? I'm going to take my Spirit from you and I'm going to put it on these 70 people. Why? So that they can bear the burden. So that you are not alone having to do this. There are going to be 70 other people, and these 70 other elders are also going to be equipped. They will also have your Spirit. They will also be able to divine with your wisdom. They will also be able to direct the people and counsel them, and the people will be able to look to them and trust them. And they perhaps might be able to work miracle works of God, just like you have, because the same Spirit that was on you is going to be upon them. And they shall bear the burden of the people with you. Notice, it is a burden, but you're going to spread it out. It's not just going to be on you alone, that you may not bear it yourself alone. Can I point out, guys, because people desire leadership. That is also a part of human nature. We like being in charge. By the way, complaining is often rooted in the fundamental belief that we could do it better. Often, not always, but often complaining is rooted in this fundamental belief that if we were in charge, things would be right and good. And consequently, people crave power and people seek after power. And I want to point out that often the worst people end up getting power. Often the worst people end up getting power because they're the ones who, in their kind of crassness, want all the trappings and the good things that come with power. It is actually kind of harder, kind of kind of rare. I don't want to say it's totally rare. I mean, I think there are many examples of great leaders, both at like a massive national level, like in history, and even at, kind of in a smaller sense. You have good leaders, people who lead sacrificially. But I want you to note that the attitude of anybody stepping into leadership ought to be that I don't want to be leader. That I'm going to step into the position of leadership because it is needed. I'm going to step into this position because I have something to offer that the people in this circumstance need, not because I really, really, really want to be in charge. And unfortunately, too many people who just want to be in charge end up being in charge. And I say all this because I want you to note that that is not who Moses is. Moses never wanted to be in charge. And his whole story is of that. Every moment of his story, when he's given an opportunity to go and lead, he tries to turn it down. You guys remember when he first meets the Lord there at the burning bush. The Lord is like, you're going to go and set my people free. And what does Moses say? He says, I'm slow of speech. I can't talk. And God's like, don't worry, I'll let Aaron speak for you. He covered every excuse Moses could lay down. Moses doesn't want to lead, but Moses fills that responsibility because God has called him and because God has uniquely equipped him for it. And so 70 people who are faithful are going to take this same position. Verse 18, then you shall say to the people, these 70 that is, consecrate yourselves for tomorrow. Oh no, sorry, this is to everyone. He says, pull the 70 aside because we're going to do some with them, and then tell everyone who all these people are complaining. He says, consecrate yourselves for tomorrow, you shall eat meat. For you have wept in the hearing of the Lord, saying, who will give us meat to eat? For it was well with us in Egypt. Therefore the Lord will give you meat, and you shall eat. So look, a mercy. God is going to give them meat. However, in addition to the mercy, you shall eat, not 1 day, not 2 days, not 5 days, not 10 days, nor 20 days, but for a whole month, until it comes out of your nostrils and becomes loathsome to you, because you have despised the Lord who is among you and have wept before him, saying, why did we ever come up out of Egypt? So what is happening here? The Lord is saying, you wanted meat, I'm going to give you the blessing of giving you meat. I'm going to give you so much of it, you're going to sick. All right, this is classic. Well, not 21st century parenting technique. Let me just say that. We don't do this anymore. But you guys know once upon a time. In fact, I would venture to say, like if you're at least Gen X, you've watched this happen from previous generations. By the way, let's just kind of read a little bit. Actually, no, I'm going to skip over a bit and come back to this. Skip down to verse 31. Now a wind went out from the Lord, and it brought quail from the sea, and it left them fluttering near the camp about a day's journey on this side, about a day's journey on the other side, all around the camp. So a wind comes through, and quail, birds, just start filling up the camp. Now this is crazy, okay? But it says about 2 cubits above the surface of the ground. Now what this seems to imply, and you could read it a couple of ways, but it seems to imply that by the end of all this quail coming in, that it's going to be piled up on the ground 2 cubits, which is 3 feet. So if you could imagine, all the Israelites are surrounded up to their thighs in quail meat. And then it goes on to say, carrying on, and the people stayed up all that day, all night, all the next day, and they gathered the quail, who gathered least, this is the smallest amount, gathered 10 homers, which is about 500 gallons. Okay, so God's like, you want meat? I'm gonna give you meat. And they spread them out for themselves all around the camp. And while the meat was still between their teeth, before it was chewed, the wrath of the Lord was aroused against the people, and the Lord struck the people with a great plague. So they called the name of that place Kibroth Hattaavah, because there they buried the people who had yielded to the craving. And that means, that Hebrew phrase means the graves of craving. So let me pause here. And I just said, if you are Gen X or older, you've experienced, maybe millennials, some millennials experience this. I never had this kind of punishment put upon me, but I watched it put upon my stepbrother. My stepbrother, he was 9, I was 8 years old, and he ended up somehow getting a can of Copenhagen Chew. I don't remember how he got it, but I remember that he had it. And I feel like I remember him frequently coming up with Copenhagen, and me always wondering how he got Copenhagen. Probably stole it from my stepdad. But he was chewing as a 9-year-old, which again, also crazy. like I tried chew in junior high and I got really sick just from trying it. He's 9, just like trying to copy your stepdad, or his dad, I guess. Anyway, his dad catches him. And the punishment, and I still have it in my mind's eye, was he took a whole roll of Copenhagen. And he said, you're going to chew and you're going to keep chewing until this entire roll is completely chewed. And I remember David, my stepbrother, leaning against the pole and just throwing up. And as soon as he was done and he was like wandering back in, my stepdad was like, take more, and like giving it to him. The philosophy was, you think you want this? Let me show you what it's like if you actually get this. Unfortunately, I think this kind of thing probably backfired on a lot of people. Years ago, like in my 20s, there was a cartoon that you may have seen, King of the Hill. I don't know if you guys remember that cartoon. There was an episode wherein the son in the show got caught smoking cigarettes, and his dad tried to force him to smoke a whole carton of cigarettes for that reason. And the result was that the kid got addicted to smoking, which is what I would envision would happen if you did actually do something like that. Anyway, so God's punishment is laid down upon these people on account of their complaining. These people who at every single turn, God has demonstrated his faithfulness. And I want to remind you guys all of this because I want you to understand that every single time you come up upon something that you are inclined to complain about, you are like them, forgetting all of the good things the Lord has put in your life. You are like them, forgetting this fundamental truth that we need to cling to in our lives, which is that God works all things together for good for those who love him, for those who are called according to his purpose, that all the things that we bring into our lives, even the things that are painful, and this is not to say there isn't pain. And it's not to say, by the way, that in your pain, you shouldn't be allowed to suffer, because pain does lead to suffering, and that is a real and right response. When Jesus hanged on that cross, he was suffering. You don't sit there and say, oh, you're not feeling the pain, or don't make such a big deal about the pain. There is real pain and there is real suffering. And God does not in any way blame us for sorrow in the midst of pain and suffering. That's a reality. What you have to understand is being condemned here by God is the fact that these people are not choosing to believe that at the end of the day, God is going to use even the suffering for good. That God himself at the end of the day is not ultimately going to do good in your life. It's that they're fundamentally assuming that God is against them. And this is why I emphasize some of the things I said, right? When they first encountered the Red Sea, they said, is it because there were no graves in Egypt you brought us out here? What is at the base of that assumption? It's that God wanted to kill them, that God didn't want to bless them. What is fundamentally underscoring what their heart is when they say, we wish we were back in Egypt? They're fundamentally saying Pharaoh and slavery was better for us than God. And so God here is demanding not that you don't suffer, but that you recognize his goodness and are thankful. And here's why this is something that I'm so passionate about, and which really, in my mind, it is a great secret in life. And let me first give you a couple of passages of scripture, and I'm going to come back to give you some examples. First of all, let me just direct you to 3 passages of scripture that kind of reaffirm for all of us the way God wants us to essentially lead our lives in regards to negative circumstances. These are going to be quick kind of flip into just a couple of passages. Start off in the book of Philippians. Chapter 2, look at verse 14. Here, in my mind, is the fundamental command undergirding what the Israelites are doing, kind of violating, and how we're supposed to live. Do all things, verse 14, all things, everything you do without complaining and disputing, that you may become blameless and harmless, children of God without fault in the midst of a crooked and perverse generation among whom you shine as lights in the world. This is a very important thing. He's trying to get you to remember that you live in a crooked and perverse world. So he's not trying to say the world isn't bad. It is bad. He's not trying to say that there aren't circumstances and things that you should deeply want to avoid. There are. What he's saying is, whatever you do, don't complain. And my assumption is that that is always true. And this is a tough thing, guys, because I don't know why. It feels good to complain. Even when nothing is coming from it. And I'm going to do it right now just to illustrate it. I'm going to do it as a test. I have horrible elbow pain right now. You might have noticed me being a little bit weird with it. I don't know why. I think, and I'm worried that it might be connected to pinched nerves that I got a couple of years ago that put me in some pretty bad pain. And I remember going into my, so me grabbing my arm like this is one of the things it is. I remember going into my 6th hour class today. I said, guys, if you see me grimace, at which point half the kids were like, what? What's grimace? Is that the guy at McDonald's? Literally said that. I was like, oh my gosh, no. I said, if you guys see me grimace, please know it's just because I'm in tremendous pain. I've been thinking about that all day. Why did I feel the need to say it? And it's all because I just wanted to complain. Because I actually weirdly felt better telling everybody I was in pain. And I just did it again. I was like, hey guys, I'm in pain, just so you all know. Why? I don't know why it makes me feel better. It kind of does. It just kind of makes me feel better. Maybe it'll make you feel sympathetic to me. Maybe you'll come up, and some people do. In fact, one of my students today, right after class, he's leaving. He goes, Mr. Velasco, I hope your elbow feels better. And I'm, thanks, man, thanks. We just feel better when we complain, and we feel better when everybody else jumps in and says they sympathize with us in our complaint. Especially, by the way, if our complaining, now this is where it gets really bad, is if our complaining is directed against something or someone that we actually there could change. Like this thing is something that is fundamentally, for the most part, out of my control. Nobody made me hurt in the elbow. It's just, the reality is I'm just starting to get old. And the result when you get older is your body just kind of starts doing unfortunate things. I'm not saying there aren't decisions I could have made that might make it healthier or whatever. I'm just saying, in general, nobody made this pain come into my elbow. But man, it feels even better when you're like, that one guy who did this one bad thing that ticks me off, I need to complain about it. And it feels so good when we tell it to somebody and they're like, I am 100% with you. That guy is bad. And at that point, now you have earned yourself a brother. Right? You're like, we have camaraderie. I am together with this person who thinks that this is bad and I am not alone, which, by the way, kind of what I pointed to earlier about Reggie, when Reggie would always deflect when I would try to complain about somebody. That always frustrated me. I'd actually get mad at him. Thankfully, the Lord would be like, he's right though, you're wrong. And I'm like, okay. But I would always get mad at Reggie. I'm like, come on, dude. This is a give and take here. The proper response is to indulge my frustration with somebody. The proper thing is to say, you're absolutely right. And then we feel like we're together as a team. And when somebody stops you and says, no, I'm not actually going to speak ill of somebody, you're frustrated because you recognize they're right and you're wrong. Because by the way, you actually potentially could recognize that the person you're mad at is right. What worst case scenario, I could always reconcile it that Reggie just wouldn't speak ill of this person because Reggie's a good, upstanding guy. But what if Reggie actually thought that guy was right? Can you guys appreciate how horrible that would make me feel? If that guy's actually the just one and I am the unjust one, which is the worst kind of, this is, by the way, something that is very hard for people to do. Very hard for people to stop and ask themselves whether or not they might not be the bad guy in a situation. And so, what is the Lord saying here? He's saying, in everything you do it without complaining. It feels good to complain. Avoid it. That's a temptation. Recognize that it's something that's going to harm you. And then he connects it to being a light in a perverse generation. We live in a world of complainers because it's human nature. That's one thing I will point out. This is part of who we are. We live in a world of complainers. People are going to complain. What is he saying? He's saying, be a light, be different, because I promise you, they will be able to tell that you are different when you are not complaining. There is a spirit that comes in from not complaining. I'm going to come back and talk about that in a bit, but what is the antidote to all of this? What are we supposed to be doing instead of complaining? The answer to that is found in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. By the way, you could find many verses that support these kinds of things. I'm just going to point to a couple. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 and locate verse 18. Actually, we'll start in verse 16. Here is just an exhortation of Paul to us, I think, generally telling us how we're supposed to kind of just live daily. Rejoice always. Again, Paul's not saying everything is always great, therefore rejoice. He knows things are bad. He frequently has laid down the, if you were to, we don't need to turn there, but you can look at it later. 2 Corinthians chapter 11, he makes a list of a whole bunch of suffering he's been in. He talks about being beaten. He talks about being stoned, like that is people trying to kill him with stones. He talks about being shipwrecked. He talks about all of these horrible things that have happened to him. He knows suffering. He spent the last couple of years of his life imprisoned for nothing. He did nothing illegal or bad, and he's suffering away in a prison. He knows suffering. So he's not saying if things are good, rejoice. He's saying rejoice always. Rejoice always, even when they're bad. Rejoice always. Pray without ceasing. Always pray. And verse 18, in everything give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you. Don't complain, give thanks. It's a simple thing that we're supposed to do. And it is a hard thing. It's a hard thing to do, to be thankful all the time. One of my favorite quotes, Fyodor Dostoevsky, he says it in Notes from the Underground. The main character is contemplating and he's thinking about the definition of a man. He says, what is a man? And he actually quotes Aristotle's famous definition. Aristotle actually had several famous definitions, but one of his definitions was that man is a rational animal. This character's reflecting, goes, what is a man? Is man a rational animal? He chuckles at that. He goes, nah, that's ridiculous. Man is not a rational animal. And then he says, I have a new definition. I have a different definition. A man is a creature that walks around on two legs and is unthankful. And I've always thought about that because, guys, that is natural for us, right? Like, we are not thankful. It is the hardest thing. I remember my mom, she worked so hard when I was a sophomore in high school, or sophomore and junior year in high school, to raise funds. She went to her employer and to customers. She was a parts runner for a auto shop. She would run to everyone and she would ask them to donate money to help send me to the National Wrestling Tournament. And we raised enough money for me to go to the tournament and for me to go to a training camp before the tournament. And I remember afterwards she said, make sure to write thank you notes. And I was like, on it. Never wrote a thank you note. I just didn't think about it because you know what? When I need the money, I can ask. But it's really hard to remember and devote the time to write the thank you notes after the fact, right? It's hard. We just don't think about it. We just don't remember. The need presses up against our minds. It's much easier to remember that there is a prayer need that I have than it is to remember that there is a prayer thanks that I need to give. And so Paul is saying, be thankful. Just as a bit of advice, I would encourage you guys, every morning, open with prayer with thanksgiving. And in giving thanks, be specific. Be specific. Think about the things think about specific blessings in your life that you are thankful for. And say it. Like, say it out loud specifically to the Lord. God, you have done good things in my life. Thank him. It changes your outlook on a whole day. The last passage I want you to look at is Hebrews chapter 12. Hebrews chapter 12. So the first passage we looked at was what we're not supposed to do, complain. The second passage is what we are supposed to do, give thanks. And this last passage I want us to look at, Hebrews chapter 12, in verse 15, is the warning as to what happens when we complain and don't give thanks. Verse 15, Paul, the author of Hebrews says, looking carefully, lest anyone fall short of the grace of God, lest any root of bitterness springing up cause trouble, and by this many become defiled. Here's the dangerous consequence of not being thankful and of complaining. Bitterness springs up in your heart. And here's the thing, it spreads like a cancer. It spreads like a disease, and you can watch it in real life. And I remember watching it firsthand in my life. I was working at my current place of employment at my school where I teach. My first few years back, because I actually taught at my school in two different segments. I taught there from 2000 to 2005, and then I took a break and came and worked here at the church full time. And then I went back to work at the school in 2011. And starting in 2011, for about 5 years, I can't remember the exact period of time. During that time, working back at the school, we had teacher meetings. We still do. We always had teacher meetings Tuesday after school. And one of the things, of course, I came to loathe teacher meetings. Not just because meetings are lame, which they are. And I think they're almost always lame. Like, meetings are bad. In fact, they're so bad. Have you guys heard of the Gulag Archipelago book by Solzhenitsyn? A Russian guy who spent 25 years in the Russian gulags. He was practicing thankfulness. He was trying to talk about the good things about being in the gulags. And he said, it's not all bad. He says, there are positives, and I have to cling to the positives. He goes, one positive is I don't ever have to go to meetings. That's what he said. No meetings. Positive to the gulags. I hated the teacher meetings. And as I reflect back on it, especially for those first couple years, why I hated the teacher meetings in particular is because the teacher meetings were always stressful, because the teachers would always use the meeting to voice their frustrations. Always. They would always say the thing that they were mad at. Now, I am not trying to just criticize these teachers. I admire many of them. I think many of them are very godly people. And can I just point out, was I amongst the teachers that would voice my frustrations? Absolutely. More often than not, when the teachers would voice their frustrations, would I agree? Absolutely. In fact, often I would go, that's exactly right. I hadn't even thought of that. That is bad. And our meetings were always bad. And the worst part is that it's like you could see the wrath spread from one person and everybody to everyone else. And everybody conveyed it in completely different ways. I remember there were teachers who would have their laptop open and they'd just be typing during the meeting on whatever, or other teachers would just be grading. And it's like you could just feel this, I'm not even paying attention. I'm not even paying attention to this because this is a waste of my time. It was horrible. And then I got a new boss. And I'll never forget, Chris Brown, awesome guy. He takes over his position, the position as upper school dean. He's now the headmaster at Greenleaf Friends Academy out in Greenleaf. But he was the upper school dean at the time. He comes in first day and he says, guys, I have a bunch of rules we're going to throw down. Number one, no working on a computer or any electronic device during the meeting. It's rude. Pay attention to who's talking. Number two, we're not going to complain. In fact, we're going to dedicate a whole segment of the meeting to things we are thankful for. And four, absolutely no working on anything else during the meeting. Guys, revolutionized the upper school. I don't know how, I just gotta say, those meetings, I still hate meetings, so I never want to go to a meeting. I'd rather go home. But those meetings are awesome. We come in, we all like each other. And we've since added to it, teachers bring food every week, and we have chefs amongst our teachers, so sometimes they bring insane food. They prepare food, we come in, we sit down, we open up things we are thankful for, and we spend half the meeting talking about what we're thankful for. And we're all hugging each other. Never, since this happened, and this was 7 years ago, never do we have that moment when somebody's all mad, gets spun up, and then everybody else gets mad. Never. I don't think it's happened once since we changed these rules. We all like each other. We all just have a great work environment. Do I disagree with things sometimes that our school does? Of course. Do teachers that I work with disagree with things our school does? Of course. Do we have an avenue by which we can try to bring our concerns to our bosses? Absolutely. We do. And incidentally, this habit that has been created in our meeting is something that both Chris and our subsequent boss, who has copied him completely, has been very good at. They've learned to not allow themselves to get spun up and defensive about it and to listen to whatever complaint. There is a time to, of course, bring concerns, because guys, what we don't want to do is live in a world in which we just go around and do whatever we're told to without ever pointing out that things might be done differently and that there are ways to improve stuff. People need to be open to that. People need to listen to that. But this thing of complaining is bad. It's always bad. So I want you guys to walk away from this with this in mind, that complaining is a spirit. When I say that, I don't mean a demon per se, although maybe there is a demon of it. But what I mean by it is like you can feel it. It is dark and it immediately drives you towards bitterness and despair. And when you spew it, when you spew this kind of complaining, it spins around to everyone else. And sometimes, like, you can see it really attacking a group of people. I do think the COVID era, and actually still to a certain degree, although I do think we're just getting better. But during COVID, when everybody was stuck in their house and we were all online all the time, what was happening? Everybody was complaining about everything. And we were all feeling it and we were all joining in, and we lived in a world of complaint is what we did. And what God is saying is he's saying, I have a practical way to actually make your life way better. Very practical. It doesn't mean there'll be no pain. It also does not mean you are not to bring recommendations and critiques to people in leadership or to things. Of course, do that. It's an unhealthy environment if that doesn't happen. But when you do it with a certain spirit. Do it with a thankful heart. Do it knowing that you don't have control over the outcome. You may not change those people's minds, and that's okay. Don't get angry. Don't get spun up. Don't allow the root of bitterness to grow up. And don't allow your mind to fixate on the thing that you are so unthankful for. Don't allow that to happen, because it is going to cause bitterness not only to grow up in your life, but it will cause bitterness to grow up in the lives of the people around you, and it will make everything miserable. But if you have a heart of thankfulness, you have a heart of thanksgiving, if you're able to sit there and say, yes, I have some suggested changes I can make for you. If you have that, and it comes from a thankfulness, then what you do is you create it. It's just going to be so much better. And God is sitting here and he's laying out a world for his people here. And as he watches them give way to the craving, as he's watching them give way to this spirit of complaint, what is it that he's frustrated by? He's frustrated by the fact that in the midst of this hardship, which is not going to change, things are going to be hard for them. They are, instead of choosing to remember God's faithfulness, instead of choosing to be thankful for who God is, instead of making the choice to believe that he actually has good plans for them and that he's going to do something good on the other side, they are instead choosing to let this spirit just run rampant through them and destroy them. And it is destructive. Like, I can't even put into words just how much it can tear things apart. You can see it I've seen it at companies, jobs. People become complainers and it literally destroys the company. I've seen it at churches. People become complainers that can tear the whole church apart. Everybody's gone and they're all complaining sometimes about nothing. Sometimes if you just try to bring people down, you're like, what is it? What is it you're complaining about? It's like, it's really not anything. I've seen it with families. I've seen it where one person in the family is just so upset that dad won't honor whatever it is that this person really wants. And they complain, why am I stuck in this family? That's it. I'm not going to ever come to a holiday again. Families collapse and fall apart, all because we just got to complain. And complaining is definitely the work of the devil. It just is. Think about this. What does the word Satan mean? It means the accuser. What is an accuser? It's somebody, like when I think of that word, I picture Satan coming in and saying, this is bad, he's bad, this is trying to tear everything down because it creates this destructive element in this destructive environment. You can see it in the real world, like be thankful. Be thankful. It will change your life. It will change your community. Speak well of people. Yes, offer critique, but do it to their face and do it with a heart of thankfulness and do it with humility like Moses has. That's the model that God sets before us. And next week, if you come back, we will talk about complaining again because I didn't get through chapter 12. And just so you know, chapter 12 is about complaining. And it's going to kind of continue on, but I'll shift focus a little bit. I won't focus specifically on the application of the complaint. But this is going to be a thing that you guys are going to see time and again as we continue to move through this. So would you guys stand with me? And prepare your hearts for communion. Which, as I've said before, I don't know if you remember this, but a common word that we don't use all that much, certainly in 21st century evangelical churches, but a common word historically for communion is the Eucharist, which I mentioned this right before the Thanksgiving holiday. Eucharist means thanksgiving. And so I love that we're going to end right now. And what is the focal point of the final act that we're going to do together? It's to give thanks to God for the greatest gift that he's given to us. And also while you're doing this, remember the greatest gift that he's given to us is the brutal destruction of his son, coupled with the beautiful resurrection. And I think that's what he wants us to have in mind when he's telling us to be thankful. Things are going to be hard, but on the other side is resurrection. On the other side is new life. He promises it. He wants us to trust him for it. Amen? Father, help us to have these hearts of thankfulness and gratitude. Help us, God, to remember your good works. Help us to trust that you will fulfill your promises to us. Help us to take hardship and difficulty and conflict head on with hearts of grace, with hearts of thankfulness, not afraid to speak truth and not afraid to confront and to give advice, but Lord, always clinging to the thankfulness in our hearts towards you, knowing that you are good. And we hold these elements as this supreme proof of your goodness in the midst of suffering, because we recognize that this bread represents your broken body, and this cup represents your spilled blood, through which we have life and the hope of resurrection. And we thank you for that as we partake of it. In Jesus' name. Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Praise him, all creatures here below. Praise him above, ye heavenly hosts. Praise Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Amen. God bless you guys. I'll see you all next week.